Hi, I'm Courtney.
And I'm Nate. Welcome to the Monopoly Couple YouTube channel, where we talk about life, love, and relationships. Thanks for joining us today.
Today, we're going to be talking about falling in love.
Falling in love, that's right.
Yeah. Oh, and hey, if you're enjoying this, would you please subscribe? We would be so grateful as we continue to grow this channel and our community, and we'd appreciate that. So today, we're going to be talking about one of the things that a lot of couples who decide to open up their marriage fear, and that is developing feelings and even falling in love with somebody else.
Right.
Yeah.
Which can be a touchy subject and one that needs to be discussed, but can be hard to talk about.
Yes, because there's a lot of fear that underlines that discussion. The fear that your partner is going to abandon you for somebody else, that they're going to like or love that person more than they love you. And so there's a lot of insecurity around this concept of allowing your partner or seeing your partner fall in love with somebody else. Now, for some reason, which we're going to discuss today, Nate never told me that I couldn't fall in love with somebody else. Why is that?
Well, because I, again, didn't fear that, I guess. It wasn't concerned for me because to me, Courtney being in love with someone else didn't minimize her love for me, right? So early on when we decided to open the relationship, that she told me that that was an important part for her, right? She wants to have emotional intimacy with someone else. And so for me, it was never a conversation that was hard. It was just always that was part of the goal for her, right? So being in love, falling in love, that's part of being in a relationship. And so again, other couples may have maybe just more sexual relationships or other things when they open the marriage up or relationship up. But for Courtney, it was about that emotional intimacy. And so that meant, what I understood, falling in love. And so again, her being in love with someone else didn't necessarily mean she wasn't in love with me, right? And if anything, we found in our relationship is that when she has feelings or love type feelings for someone else, it only builds our relationship up, right? Courtney is more fulfilled. She is better in who she is. And so that really helps. But why can that be a challenge for other people?
Because we have been conditioned to believe that romantic love is only for one person and it's like a limited resource. It's interesting because we don't apply this same reasoning to like familial love. So people that have more than one kid, nobody asks them, are you afraid you're not going to be able to love that child the same as you love your other? No, because they know that love compounds love and that your heart just opens more with the more love that you have. And then people try to a lot of times dismiss it and say, well, romantic love is different. But I think it all comes from the same source. And it's really just about what you feel comfortable with and what you're willing to basically fight against in terms of what's important to you and what you want and the amount of love that you want in your life.
Totally agree. How can couples begin to have that conversation, those hard conversations? Yeah. Do they talk about it right away? Do they talk about it after a while? Do they talk about when they're having feelings, if they're jealous, if they're concerned, if they're scared? What's the best way to start to begin those conversations?
I think it would really go back to why are you opening the relationship in the first place? And so are you opening the relationship because you're feeling like your emotional needs aren't being met, your sexual needs aren't being met, or you feel like that's just who you are, like myself, where you think that you believe that you are capable of loving and needing another person in your life besides just the one that you have. So I think that looking at the motivation behind why you're engaging in non-monogamy in general, and then just being honest about the type of fears. Okay, so it is normal to feel threatened when you have somebody else showing interest in what you value and what you desire. That is a totally normal reaction. And having a safe space where you can process together is so important. We did that processing in the beginning with a therapist. We definitely worked with Dave a lot.
Highly recommend. Or anyone else who can be a neutral third party, right?
Yeah.
And preferably someone who has experience with polyamory or non-monogamy, because those conversations are unique. They're different than the conversations that you would have with someone who may be, for example, like a traditional relationship therapist or something else, yeah. Right? Because, and again, we tried those as well before we found our current therapist, counselor, whatever you want to call him. And those were really challenging because they didn't quite understand the idea of the non-monogamy. It was really hard. So it was more like where the discussion was, we'll just be together more, just spend more time together, just whatever it may be. And that may fix or repair or just talk more about it. And again, that wasn't going to work for us, right? Because the idea was we were going to enter into this new relationship, this new sort of paradigm in our relationship. And so again, I recommend working with someone who has that skill and technique and understands those relationships, because that's going to make it ultimately significantly better on how to have conversations, right? Because those are hard and unique conversations. And we don't normally have those conversations. We don't grow up having those conversations. Many times we don't talk about that growing up, or the idea of multiple loves or someone else, right? It's sort of not in the media. It's not talked about, right? It's the idea of sort of one person finding another person, falling in love, and spending the rest of their life together. And that's it. And so those are really hard conversations. And so I recommend having those with someone who knows what they're talking about.
And I would say not just knows, but also accepts. Because when I was looking for a therapist a few years ago when we first started, I found therapists that knew about non-monogamy, but they were not accepting of it because of the language and the things that they said to me during sessions. So it's really, really important, and be an advocate for finding a professional that knows and accepts. And even if they practice, that might not necessarily be relevant. I've had people in my life who have been great support and they don't practice non-monogamy, but they were able to add compassion and empathy for me as a non-monogamous person.
Yep. So again, it's all about communication, as we stated before. It's really important to understand what your partner who may be non-monogamous wants and needs, and then the partner who is monogamous, or even if you're both non-monogamous, like what you want and need out of the relationship. So, and it may be that one person struggles with the idea of someone else falling in love, and you need to have those conversations and what that's going to look like going forward, right? Because what you don't want is for a miscommunication or just no communication, and then all of a sudden your partner falls in love with someone else and you're not ready to go through that, right? You're not ready to understand that, to be emotionally available with them, to be there for them when that happens, right? Because then they might get their heart broken or something else may happen. And so those can be hard conversations. So again, just be open and honest up front about what you need. And that may change over time, right? So we have certainly had our relationship, what it looks like when Courtney dates, every facet of our relationship in that has changed, some more than others over time. But just be open to continuing those conversations as you go along.
Yeah. And know that it is easy to want to hold tight to something. And that, again, is a normal reaction. But I never want Nate to stay with me based out of fear. And he doesn't want the same for me. So even if we were in a monogamous relationship, there's still the possibility that he could fall in love with somebody else, or he could suddenly realize he doesn't want to be in a marriage with me anymore. So that reality does happen even if you're in a non-monogamous setting. Is it more likely that you're exposed to those feelings of love and excitement in a non-monogamous situation? Yes, of course. But the reality is that we want to be here by choice, and we want to be continually choosing each other every day, and knowing that how I feel about other people only makes me a stronger, more well-rounded, well-loved woman. And that makes me able to be a better partner for him.
Right. So communication is the key. Your partner needs to be who they are. As you go through this process, that may change. So just be open to that. And again, always be there to support them.
All right.
All right.
And as we always say,
thanks for watching today. Please subscribe, comment below. Everything helps as we grow this channel. Thanks again.